Hi, I just come back from work via the charity shop where I've got a nice new blouse and I love it because it's got flamingos on it. So yes, very excited when I found this on the rails. If you don't know me, my name's Emily and I'm doing a series on my personal curriculum that I'm doing for the next month or two, and it's all based on this book, which is by Kate Atherley, which is the beginner's guide to knitting pattern writing. So I have just finished chapter 1. I'm trying to do a chapter each week, so week 1, chapter 1, and then so on and so forth. Chapter 1 has been about the elements that you include in the pattern, so not necessarily at the moment how to write a pattern, as in, like the cables, increases, decreases, all the stitches, things like that. It's more what is included, like the title, photographs of the garment or item that's being knitted, and the tension, the yarn that's being used, the needles, whether there's going to be embroidery in it, so on and so forth, and how to write it in a way that's clear and concise for knitters, and to address of any areas of potential confusion that may come across, especially when especially the UK and US and other parts of the world, you've got different terminologies for the same thing, so bind off or cast off, and also imperial metric measurements as well. And yes, so I found it really, I have found chapter 1, well, hopefully find the whole book really informative, and I've been making notes in my notebook, and I've set myself, I've got some questions for myself, and I've set myself homework. So basically the questions I set to myself was how I would like to write these patterns as a potential knitting pattern designer, and how I knit and what I knit, the language that we use will come across to make it easy for other people to replicate it themselves. So my background is I tend to write a lot more vintage knitting patterns. I collect vintage knitting patterns, I wear more vintage clothing. I'm not looking very vintagey today because I've just come home from work. And yes, so with the vintage knitting patterns, the yarn is discontinued, and I have to guess what sort of yarn to use going from the tension square that they give. Well, they don't actually really give a tension square. A lot of them it's stitches per inch rather than stitches per 4 centimetres or 10 centimetres, even 4 inches, 10 centimetres. So there's quite a lot of guesswork and a lot of trial error when I'm trying to make a tension square to try and match the tension given in the pattern itself. And also the needle sizes have changed as well, so a lot of the needle sizes are given in Old English, and then I have to try and find the converted chart to make sure it's it matches in that it is modern English, like the metric system, the metric, so mil rather than number 9, number 10, number whatever number needles it is on the pattern itself. And I also tend to knit with second-hand yarn, so I buy it from Vinted or find it in charity shops, and often the label's missing, or I buy old sweaters, old jumpers, and unravel it for the yarn. And of course then you don't know what the ply is, so I do a lot of wraps per inch to give myself an educated guess, or try and get as close to what the ply is, and use that wraps per inch measurement to give me a good idea which patterns I can use it for, which on the whole has turned out quite well so far. So giving myself, thinking about the future and how I want to write these patterns and what's in this book, I would like to write patterns that have some longevity, again with yarns being discontinued. So for me as a knitter, it's more handy to have the yarn given as in like DK weight and the tension and how many meters or yards you're going to need, rather than an actual branded yarn that's no longer going to be available in the next couple of years. So for me, I would like to, as a pattern designer, do that. I would write patterns that I would like to read myself. That would be really helpful, and especially coming from a budget point of view as well, because a lot of the yarns can be are expensive and can be out of budget for a lot of people. So it'd be good to write patterns that people can use the yarn that's within their budget. So for me, my homework is to try and figure out the correct yardage or meterage that would be needed in the pattern. So I'm going to do a video soon on some on a technique that I found and see if it's actually workable, that it's true, as close to the correct yardage as possible, if that makes sense. I'm still new to making all these videos, and it's really weird talking to yourself on screen, so I hope what I'm trying to communicate is coming across. But yes, so I just want to say thank you for watching this video, and I'll keep you up to date with my progress as I carry on with this. Thank you, bye.